privilege of hosting him and his dear wife Beata at our home and just exchanging stories. How did you get to know the Lord? And there's such a variety of stories, but one Savior. He is ultimately the way, the truth, the life, and there's no other one. And I had the privilege of driving somebody back home who came from a country where he just simply was not raised with Christianity. And as he came back home, and he sat around our table as well, I was just listening to all these stories. And on the way back home, he said, I need God now. That was really encouraging. He needs to grow into this, but I was so encouraged for him to hear that. And so we're encouraged now and inviting you here to share your story, I believe, a little more with us. So we normally go till around 8 for flexible, and you can end as you see fit. Come on up, Mirek.
Is it okay if I, sorry, too loud. Is it okay if I stay here? I prefer to be closer to you. Would that be okay? Do you know any Polish words at all? Anybody here? Any Polish words that you can say with Polska? Okay, that's a good one. Any other Polish words? Everybody other but Remi, okay? Ah, perfect. Axiomaz. Very good. Well, I figured I should start with a little Polish lesson, so I'm going to teach you 2 Polish words, okay? The first one is cześć. Can you say that? Cześć. Cześć. Okay, that means hi. Cześć. And the other one is dzień dobry. Dzień dobry, which means good morning. Okay, so cześć means hi. Dzień dobry means good morning. Now, I'm going to ask you if you can tell the difference. I'm going to say something. Cześć, cześć. Did you notice the difference? I'm going to say it again. Cześć, cześć. Is there a difference? Do you notice the difference?
I would say it's the tone. One is level, one is down.
Yeah, the tone makes a difference, but also the first letter is different, okay? Cześć, when you say it fast, you know, cześć means hi, sześć means 6, okay? Now, here's another example. Dzień dobry. I've just taught you this phrase, dzień dobry. I'm going to say it again. Dzień dobry. Can you hear the difference? Dzień dobry, dzień dobry. Did you notice the difference? That's a very important one because dzień dobry means good morning. Dzień dobry means good son-in-law. So this is I just gave you 2 examples to show you that, Polish language is not easy to master for foreigners. Me being a linguist, I once remember reading an article on the 20 most difficult languages in the world, and Polish was on that list. It was at the bottom of the list, maybe 19 or 20. All the Chinese languages, Hungarian, I don't know if the Hungarian folks are here or not with us. They were in the morning. A Hungarian lady does very difficult language. But Polish is an extremely difficult language because it seems for every example we have 6, for every examples we have 6, what's the word, 6 exceptions, to the rule. For every rule, we have 6 or maybe even a dozen exceptions. So as you can tell by my accent, Polish is my first language. I was not born here. I'm a self-taught. English is my second language. And it was the year 89 when my wife and I basically said there's no hope for us in this country. And what I'm talking about is Poland as a communist country. We grew up in a communist Poland. Communism in Poland, I must say, had always been very different than communism in other countries, but still we lived in a communist country, okay? So life was really difficult. Just to give you a couple examples, and I mentioned it on a few occasions, monthly wages when we were teenagers were about $15, $20. And at the same time, you had to pay about $20 to get a pair of jeans, or $20 to get a pair of shoes, good shoes, or $15, $20 to get a nice shirt. So in order for you to be dressed like I'm dressed tonight, jeans, shoes, and shirt, you'd have to spend about $50, $60, which means 3 months' wages. So we were thinking, another example, to have a landline hooked up to your apartment, you had to wait 6 months to a year, okay? to be able to purchase an old Western vehicle with, huge mileage on it, you'd have to work and save for 10, 15 years to be able to basically get a vehicle like that. So we were thinking, and we were even encouraged by our folks, by our parents, there's no future for you in Poland, you better leave the country. And the time came when both my wife and I, we were in our early 20s, barely newlyweds. 6 months after we got married, we decided to leave Poland permanently. So we've sold all of our belongings. We've acquired a humongous amount of money, which was $250. So you can imagine how rich we felt back in that time when monthly wages were $20. We were thinking, wow, we've got so much money, So we left Poland. We couldn't go directly to Canada. My wife's cousin had been living in Edmonton, and she's agreed to sponsor us and help us get to Canada, but we couldn't go directly to Canada. We had to go to one of the West European countries and apply for residency, for refugee status, for landed immigrant status. And Austria was the only country that did not require visas, entry visas, from the Polish people, so we decided to go to Austria. And the first night, we landed in this strange country. We didn't speak the language. We didn't know anybody there. We had a few phone numbers, but when we tried, it didn't work. So the guy who drove us, the Austrian guy, drove us to the center of Vienna, and he just left us there. And we were standing in the middle of the bustling city, not speaking the language, not knowing where to go and what to do. But God had planned for us. And to make the long story short, we landed in a very obscure motel, together with a single mom with a mom with a child in the same room, and we paid $50 for that first night in a very obscure motel. And I was thinking, my first thought was, it's 1/5 of all the funds that we have, and we were devastated. So we were newlyweds, but we were not doing good in terms of our relationship. We finally got to the refugee center, refugee camp. That's another thing that did not help us, because we stayed in a huge room with 100 other people, people from all walks of life, single people, married people, families with little kids, a lot of screaming, fighting, people raising their voices, arguing. So, just a couple bathrooms in the hallway with water, which was not that hot and nice. And so we were devastated. And I just want to abbreviate the whole story. So the time came, we left Poland as, I often tell people, religious pagans. Our background is nominal Catholicism. And we had, when we sold all of our possessions and packed 2 backpacks, we moved to Austria. 50% of our backpacks was canned food, basically, just in case, right? And we had a New Testament, which was a gift. When we got married, we received this New Testament from a priest who married us, and we took it with us, not because we wanted to read it, but because we felt like, okay, we treated that as a lucky charm kind of a thing, just in case. There was a bunch of holy pictures inserted in the New Testament, and so we've got this. And while in Traiskirchen, close to Vienna, we came across great people who, as we found out, were Christian people, right? They were a bunch of missionaries who were working under the umbrella of international teams, mostly Americans, some Canadians, a few people from Western Europe, some Dutch people on part of that team, and they were running a coffee place. And at first we thought these were nice people, but crazy people, because they were constantly talking about Jesus. There was a big sign, there was a coffee bar, and a big sign behind, "We give you this coffee in the name of Jesus," right? Or they would say, "Jesus loves you," offering you a coffee, "Jesus loves you." And once they discovered that we were Polish, they would say it in Polish language. So we were impressed, but at the same time we thought, either Jehovah's Witnesses or there's something wrong with those people, okay? They were saying they were Christians, so we thought, oh, they're Christians, we're Christians too. We grew up in a religious environment. But the time came when we both realized that we were sinners, and we needed the Lord. I was actually challenged one day when a person from that group said that, when you read the New Testament, I firmly believe in purgatory. So one day I was talking to this one brother. I was not a Christian at the time. I was talking to him, and I mentioned purgatory, and he smiled and he said, "Mirek, but when you read the New Testament, or when you read the Bible for that matter, you don't find anything about purgatory there." And I felt really bad. I felt like my theological system was collapsing. And I had a very impure motives. I said to myself, I'm going to prove to these guys that they're wrong and I'm right, okay? Because that was not the only thing I heard. I heard some other things like, I used to think that, in terms of who's the mediator between God and man, I thought, well, there's lots of mediators, Mary and saints and, just all sorts of mediators. And this brother said, well, there's only one mediator. So I said, no, I'm going to prove them that they're wrong. And for the first time in my life, I started reading the New Testament, flipping the pages of the New Testament. Had plenty of time, stayed in a refugee center, no job, nothing to do, just flipping the pages of the New Testament. And within a few weeks of reading the New Testament, I discovered two things. One was I could not believe that I used to believe that something is white or black, and here I'm reading that it's quite the opposite, okay? And that was shocking experience. And another thing was that I was thinking, how is it possible that I had been attending church all my life and I've never heard about these things that I'm reading right now? So that was the mental conversion, and it took me a few more weeks after a few fights with my wife. I need to understand that we're talking about two different personalities, alpha male, alpha female. Strong personalities, different family background, different rules in our homes. We once did this Myers-Briggs type indicator, and of the 4 letters, none of them matches. So we're as different as you can be. So we were fighting like cat and dog, and the time came when basically I felt, if God will not help me, as much as we've promised each other that we're going to love each other, forever, and we're going to be very different from our parents' marriage, we were following the same footsteps, right? So the time came when finally the Lord broke me, and I knelt down and I said, Lord, if what I'm reading here is true, I want this kind of life. I'm asking you to change my life. I was crying, which was very unusual for me because Polish man, I grew up in this environment where men do not cry. You do not cry, you wimp if you cry, okay? You gotta be tough, So I was tough all my life, and here I was just devastated. I was crying and confessing my sinfulness to God. My wife did that a few weeks before I did. I didn't know anything about it. And then she shared with me that she's committed her life to Christ also. And as soon as we both trusted the Lord, we wanted to move back to Poland immediately because all of a sudden, it just didn't make sense to us to go to Canada. Like, why would we want to go? Like, we left Poland because we wanted to improve our living conditions, but we found something much greater, much bigger. We were so excited about our faith that we were ready to pack and go back. But thankfully, some of these Christian brothers and sisters, we became friends with them already, and they were praying with us, they were praying for us, and some of them suggested, the Lord has led you so far, He must have a plan for you. You need to know that maybe you will always be able, you should stick to your immigration plans. Because if you will always be able to move back to Poland. But if you'll terminate your immigration process now, you will not be able to resume it. And that made sense for us. So we basically, after living in Austria for a year and a half, we arrived to Canada as baby Christians. So we left Poland as religious pagans, arrived to Canada as brand new Christians, with an intention of moving back to Poland one day to be involved in the Lord's work. And we have 4 grown-up sons. 2 of them were born in Canada. My wife was pregnant with the 3rd boy when we finally decided to move back, which was not easy. The fact is, the longer we stayed in Canada, the more difficult it was for us to move back because we were getting used to living here so much. And folks, from the purely human perspective, we love Canada is our second home. Our kids were born here. We love it here. We love the culture. We love the people. We feel comfortable here. If it was not for the desire to move back, specifically to be involved in the Lord's work, I think we would have stayed here. And we were on the same, I remember days when I was telling my wife, honey, it's time to go back. And she'd say, no, honey, I don't think so. We better stay here longer. Then she would say, hon, it's time to move back. And I would say, no, this is not the right time. We need to stay a bit longer, save some money, get a job, save some, and then the day will come when one day we'll move back. But the day came when we both decided, okay, this is the time to move back. I had a full-time job initially for a year and a half, involved in evangelistic Bible study for Polish people in Calgary. But I was thinking I need some training. So, we prayed about it, and and filed an application to 3 different Bible colleges and eventually decided to go to Emmaus Bible College where I met Randy and Sherry. My wife and I met them. They were single at that time, you know. But we could sense that something was happening there, you know. So after I graduated from Emmaus, 5 semesters, I was able to actually transfer most of my general education courses from Polish University, where I actually studied Russian language and culture. So I transferred most of my courses towards my degree, which made it possible for me to graduate earlier. Then moved to Three Hills, Alberta, where I went to the grad school. And the year was 95 when I graduated, and a year later, we said, okay, this is the time to move back. I must tell you that we were both, maybe I should speak for myself, I was pretty naive when we decided to go back, because I was thinking, okay, Mirek, you speak the language, this is your first, Polish is your first language, you know the culture, you have a desire to move back to Poland to be involved in the Lord's work, you have the support of your local church, our elders were all for it, they were blessing us and very supportive. You're young, energetic, what else do you need? Well, quickly we've realized that church planting in a country like Poland is quite a challenge. Because back then, statistically, 97% of the people in Poland claimed their affiliation with the Roman Catholic Church. And witnessing to Polish people, it's changing. It's changed quite a bit. But back then, witnessing to Polish people was like, if I can use that comparison, like witnessing to Pharisees of Jesus' days. Because, you know, Polish people had their religion. In fact, to this day, there's this conviction that to be Polish equals to be Catholic. You know, there's no other option. And so people, you know, used to be very religious, and it was quite a challenge to come across with the gospel to them. On a few occasions, we felt like we wanted to move back to Canada because the first 2 years, not much was happening, 2-3 years. We've tried all sorts of things, you know, tract distribution, Jesus movie distribution, going door to door. I would go to the square and talk to the people. We would try to talk to people on the playground, get to know people just from school, and just all sorts of things, you know, mini conferences, workshops, and just different things, events. And it was just not much was happening. And we were thinking, are we in the right place? Is this the right time? Are we doing the right thing? Is this of the Lord? Or were we just convincing ourselves that the Lord called us to be involved in His work in Poland, but that was not His plan? But finally, after those first 3 years, when there was a group of 10, maybe 12 people already, who were part of this initial group, the Lord started adding more and more people. And more people. So we could see people trusting the Lord. And I'm just happy you're going to see let me just use this little device here. So this is, we actually live in a city, Wrocław, right here. It's our 3rd largest city in Poland, 800,000 people, over 100,000 students, 11 universities, so it's really an academic city. Officially, between 120 and 150,000 immigrants refugees from Ukraine. That's officially, but unofficially there's probably more. On top of that, there's immigrants from Belarus and some other countries that come to Poland. So you get to hear a lot of Ukrainian and a lot of Russian on the streets of our city. We're about 2 hours driving distance from Germany, so this is the German border. This is Czech Republic, Slovak Republic. This is Ukraine, Belarus. This is Lithuania right here, and a part of Russia. So we're located in the southwest, about an hour and a half to Germany and about an hour to the Czech Republic. So when we started with ground zero. And so today we have, well, before I say that, David, where's David? I've asked, is it David or Dave? I'm going to call you Davidek. Davidek, that's diminutive for Dave in Polish, Davidek. Davidek, I've asked him to read some facts about Poland. So on the next slide, let's see if we can do that. Poland facts. You may find it interesting. So, David, why don't you read that, please?
It was Polish astronomer Nicholas, help me out with that one.
Copernicus.
Okay. Who first argued that the Earth was not the center of the universe. Poland was the first country in Europe and second in the world to have modern Constitution. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Poland has been invaded or has fought for freedom in insurrections 43 times from 1600 to 1945. Poland was the center of the European Jewish world, with 3.3 million Jews living in Poland prior to World War II. Polish astronomer Jan
Hevelius.
Sure. Published the earliest exact maps of the moon. Nazi-occupied Poland was the only territory where the Germans decreed that any kind of help for Jews was punishable by death. Up to 50,000 Poles were executed by the Nazis for saving Jews. The first oil refinery in the world was built in 1856 by Polish pharmacist and petroleum industry pioneer Ignacy
Łukasiewicz.
Okay.
You've passed already, so you don't have to worry about the grade. You've
Okay.
passed the test.
Roman Catholicism is so popular in Poland that there is a television channel dedicated to the Pope. Nearly 35% of the 60 million Poles live abroad. It is estimated that there is one evangelical church for 40,000 inhabitants. It is estimated that there is one born-again believer for 1,000 inhabitants. And Poland is one of the most spiritually needy countries in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, I call Poland a spiritual desert. And I often use this comparison. If you have a map of Europe at home, you can open it and open a map of Poland, close your eyes, and point your finger anywhere and assume that there's no Christian testimony there. You can drive to different locations, different places, even Zduńska Wola, where Remy comes from. How many people in Zduńska Wola? 50,000. There may be one small evangelical church, Baptist church, is it? Yeah. Many places, like in our city, when we moved to Wrocław almost 30 years ago, there were 4 evangelical churches, 2 Baptist and 2 Pentecostal. Now there's about 30 plus evangelical churches after those 30 years. But still, if you count all the people, I don't think we have more than 3,000, maybe 4,000 max, born-again people in a city of 800,000 people. So there is a great need for the gospel. And the thing is, statistically, Poland is in a different place today, because I mentioned already that when we moved back to Poland, 97% of the people claimed their affiliation with the state church. Today, there's probably less than 25%, 24 or 25. I monitor every once in a while the official statistics. So mostly older folks go to church once a week. Young people are very dissatisfied, disillusioned, but at least they are still willing to talk to you. When you approach them and ask them, and many of them do engage in a conversation, right? But the thing is about our ministry, we've done literature distribution, book stands, just all sorts of things, but we've discovered that friendship evangelism is what the Lord has been blessing us with, right? So quite often you basically have to gain the trust of the people. Show them that you're not selling them something, you just truly care for them. Spend time with them, show them that you care, invite them for tea, coffee, help them with different things, and then progressively they gain trust and they say, well, tell me, there's something different about you, what is it? And then it gives you freedom to present the gospel. I'm not saying that any other approaches are wrong. This is just the way we do it, right? But we've got people who do all sorts of things. We've got Remy, who comes to Poland every year, and he goes to the streets and just distributes the gospel literature and talks to people about Jesus. And we have a great respect for the brother. So, okay, so let me just show you some of the things that we do. Local church planted since '96. We've been involved in pastoral and counseling ministry, evangelism and leadership development, teaching ministry, annual church retreats, annual conferences, Wrocław Forum of Women Foundation, which my wife runs together with other women from other evangelical churches, Compass Projects, which is a leadership development initiative, and Christian bilingual preschool and elementary school. So Wrocław Church, I'm going to show you a few pictures. The picture was actually taken at our celebration. We just very recently celebrated 25 years as a church. We started with just a small group of, just my wife and I. Then progressively, the Lord added a few more people, but we function as a house church or small group, okay? But in Poland, in order to function legally, you have to be registered. And so finally, and you have to have 15 people, minimum 15 people or more to approach the government and register officially as a church. So we registered under the umbrella of the Brethren Church, which in Poland is not a movement, it's a denomination, and you have to function under the umbrella of the denomination. So the picture that was taken at our celebration, 140 people present at that celebration. That was a picture taken at one of our retreats. Usually in the fall, we have a church retreat. We go like 2 hours driving distance to the hilly area of the country, and we've got good time of fellowship and teaching and prayer time. Every once in a while, we have different approach to our Sunday morning service. So we break, and some people are very confused when they come. I bet you would be confused if I would rearrange all these chairs, and one Sunday you'd come here and you'd see that there's a table here, a table back there, a table over here, and a table here, and there are chairs around the table. And you'd be thinking, what's happening? What's going on? Well, it's a church service, but very different, very unusual, where we break down into groups and we pray together and have a breaking of bread this way, okay? That's one of our retreats again. That's our men's breakfast. We have it on a monthly basis, and there is a group of anywhere from 15 to 30 men that come to our men's breakfast, and we encourage different men to lead it. And this is again a picture taken at one of our retreats. And here's another one. So now we have about 70, 80 people in fellowship. We have nice cafeteria, and that's very encouraging. After the service, our service goes for an hour, 20 minutes, an hour and a half. And then after the service, people stay for up to 2 hours, sometimes even longer than that. And that's a good sign. That means that people want to be together. They want to spend time together. They don't rush home, okay? So that's a good indication that there is some life there, right? And this is our parking lot. Wspólnota Chrześcijańska Swojczyce, which means Christian Fellowship Swojczyce, and the sign there says Centrum Chrześcijańskie Swojczyce, which is a Christian center Swojczyce. So Christian center is basically what we call our building Christian center, but under the umbrella of the building there are different things happening. There is obviously the meeting of our fellowship, but also preschool. There is also Wrocław Forum of Women that meet there. There's home groups that meet. There are the evenings, Bible studies, events, youth event on Saturday, so there are different things going on. Okay, so if you can envision, if this is Poland, if this is the western border of Poland, where the mic is, and this is the eastern border of Poland, we are more or less right here, which is about an hour and a half to the border with Germany, and 5 hours driving distance east of us, there is a city of Tarnów. Can you say that, by the way, Tarnów? Great, you've all passed the exam, Tarnów. Not an easy Polish word. So the city of Tarnów, generally, eastern part of Poland is a lot more conservative and a lot more difficult to witness to in terms of sharing the gospel. The smaller the place, the bigger the problem. Like the challenges are bigger. So we've, a few years ago, we've commended this family. They are originally from Tarnów, but we got to know them. Jerry was my student at the Academy of Homiletics, and knowing him and his wife, we said, okay, and knowing that they have this desire to be involved in planting a new church, we've empowered them, we've blessed them, and they are our first commended missionaries to the city of Tarnów. When they started, it's been maybe 5 years now, I think, maybe 5, 6 years. The same thing, like very comparable to Wrocław. You know, the first couple years it was really not easy. But now there's about 35, 40 people in fellowship in that group, and they are ready to officially register as a church. So they've been doing a great thing, and this is a picture taken at one of the camps, which they organized, a home Bible study in Jarek and Anya's home, and another picture with kids. Crazy Jerry, that's what I call him, Uncle Jerry. Yeah. And another good thing is that now if you look at this as our city, okay, so this is just our city, west end of our city and the east end of our city. We are located in the east, pretty close to the border with near village or villages. Most of the evangelical churches are located in the center, and most of them are charismatic, some of them extremely charismatic. There's a river flowing from the northeast to the southwest, Odra River, which divides the city. So all of these evangelical churches are on the west end of the river. We are the first testimony on the east end of the city, and we have been praying and asking the Lord, we'd like to see the Christian witness in other parts of the city. So this wonderful couple, Karol and Basia, God has put on their heart a new church plant, and Karol's background is Brethren, but he then, left Poland, moved to Australia, lived in Australia for 5 years, got his theological training, got back to Poland, and we reconnected. And as we were talking about the need for the gospel, the need for young churches, vibrant churches to be planted, we discovered that we're on the same page. And Karol has been involved in Acts 29, if you've heard about it. What's his name? The theologian that is with the Lord now. Tim Keller from New York. So Tim Keller is one of those guys behind Acts 29. We're not officially part of this Acts 29, but as two churches. So basically there were 4 families in our local church meeting in this location, but commuting from the west end of the city or some of the villages on the west end. So that was an hour or more than an hour of commuting, right? And I know that Canadians have a very different perspective. Europeans have a different perspective on distance. Polish people are not as bad as Swiss people, I'm telling you, okay? Anybody with the Swiss blood running in your vein here? We have some Swiss friends who said once that in Switzerland, driving 100 kilometers is considered long-distance driving. And often Swiss people, after driving 25, 30 kilometers, they stop for coffee and dessert, right? And then they drive another 25, 30 kilometers, and they're tired, and they stop. Poland is not like that, but, I remember driving from Calgary to Vancouver, and that was like, wow, just long drive. Okay. So 4 families, with our blessing, were the core of this new church plant and a bunch of students. So now there's a fellowship of about praying for Karol as one of the elders, and that's their church, about 70 people in fellowship in that church. Okay, this is one of the retreats. So my wife is telling me that time is running fast. I've asked her to tell me, once I hit half an hour, tell me, because I don't want to, I want to keep you too long, and I want to open it for questions. So Christian bilingual Montessori preschool and school is what we've been involved in, and it all started with Kids Club in our building, and from like 2 kids, 3, 4, 5, and it grew to a fully functional preschool. So now there's 25 kids at our preschool and 25 children. That, there was a need to start a Christian school. So it's in the incipient stage. We only have 3 grades 1 through 3. And it's lots of challenges related to that, but we're plowing ahead, and we're hoping and praying that the Lord will bless that, and we'll see the growth of both the preschool and the school. And if you have questions, you can talk to my wife. She'll tell you all about it. Great ministry. Most of the kids come from non-Christian homes, most of them. Very few Christian kids. They know that they sign a contract with us. When they sign it, they know it's a Christian preschool and Christian school. And interestingly enough, most of them claim to be agnostics or atheists, but I recall this one conversation with one parent, one father, and I said, once a year there's this potluck, a meal together for kids and parents. I would approach him and ask him, so how is your relationship with God? And he smiled and he said, it's the same. I'm not too much interested in God, but you need to know that if I'll ever change my mind, you will be the first church I'll come to, because I really appreciate what you've been doing for my child, okay? And that was very meaningful to us. Day trip. Conferences is something that we do. Small conferences, big conferences, different ones. Women's Forum is this Christian organization that the big thing is their conferences, annual conferences for women, which happens usually in the fall. So you see my wife with another lady here, and let's see. Okay. And usually between 300 and 400 or 450 women once a year. And usually a group of women commit their life to Christ, at this conference. Social store has been running for 3 years. We just had to close this year. That was started by, again, Women's Forum. Basically, there was a need to present the gospel in a creative way and combine it with the social involvement. So when the social store started, since then, for all these 3 years, 100 volunteers involved, more than 11,000 customers have gone to the store. Refugees from Belarus, from Ukraine, underprivileged people, older people, and it's more than just a store. I don't think you've ever seen a store where staff would be praying with customers, and customers would be sharing their prayer needs at the store. That was happening there. Unfortunately, we had to close this year because the idea was for the store to become self-supported, but it never happened. Even though many churches and individuals and families helped financially, but it was just so difficult, and we had to close it this year. So here's the picture, and the man here is the mayor of the Wrocław, mayor of the city. So that was the picture taken 3 years ago when the store opened. The day of the opening of the store. And refugees, we're still involved with refugees, not as much as we used to. Many of them, I don't know how many people, but a good number of refugees have gone through our church, and we've helped them in many different ways. Practical advice, giving advice, going to government offices, helping with food, with clothes, just different things, furniture. Right now we have one Ukrainian family that's still with us, and people from Belarus, one family from Belarus. But we've had like 5 or 6 families, and we've done quite a bit of work cooperating with different organizations and supporting different initiatives over those last 3 years since the war started. So here's me praying for one of these families. One lady, was really open to get the New Testament, to get the Bible, and she really wanted to read it. And okay, so this is the graduation. These ladies had been learning Polish, very intensive course of Polish language, and there was a nice graduation and the diplomas. And here's just to finish off some of my students. I have been involved in different initiatives, from the itinerary preaching and speaking through the Academy of Homiletics and Center for Discipleship. So you're going to see some faces, people that you don't know, but I just figured I should just show it to you. And Jonasz, one of the young, we invest our time and energy into the lives of young people. I'm happy to say that all of our boys live for the Lord, very much involved in local churches, but the oldest one, Bartek, has been involved in this national, national initiative. Like together with Jonasz, they organize national events for young people from different assemblies across the country. Tomek, a guy who, if you would have met him 15, 20 years ago, you would not believe how the Lord can change someone's life. Like, he's been very much involved, helpful, even though his family fell apart. His wife left him, so he's been raising 2 daughters by himself, pretty much. And this is one of the first families that joined us in our fellowship. And the last photo, some praise and prayer items, but we'll get back to it. I'm going to show you the photo of our family. So this is Bartek, our oldest son, who's 35. His wife, Estera. Timothy, our first grandchild, who's, the photo is kind of old because Timothy is 6 years old now. Yeah. And then Marty and his wife, Roxana, they also have a son now, Noah, little Noah. And then us and David, our third oldest one. My wife was pregnant with David when we were moving back to Poland. Deborah, his wife, and they have little son, Shimek. And our fourth son, I call him Baby Adam. But Baby Adam has been living in Edmonton. He's 6'4" or 6'5", tall guy, really into sports, but very much involved in church, loves the Lord. And you've noticed, I've hugged some of you. We're a hugging family, and Polish people hug a lot. So when I want to hug Adam, I have to sort of, stand on my toes and give Daddy a hug, So some praise and prayer items. if you can read that. But do you have any questions? You know, I could speak whatever, but yes. Yeah, there are cults, but funny that you've asked that, because evangelical Christianity is perceived by the Polish society as a cult. So if you were to go to UK, evangelical churches are treated, you know, equally on a par with other churches. But in Poland, anybody who's not Catholic must be Jehovah's Witness. And if you're not Catholic and not Jehovah's Witness, then you must be a cult, right? But yes, you know, cults, the proper word, we do have them. There is some crazy stuff happening. Like you know, in Warsaw, capital of Poland, you know, there are some groups. Someone sent me a YouTube video of what's happening there, and I was thinking, and it's all in the name of the Lord, but you would not want to see that, you know, so. It changed the makeup of a number of churches, not so much our local church. We had been praying, and people have been faithfully attending. You know, same thing as in Canada. Distance, certain number of people, could use the facility. But Polish people are quite creative, because their regulation was that there should be 2 meters by 2 space for a single person in the room, so that the chairs were spread out. But you could only have a certain number of people attending the meeting, but that did not include staff. So you had to make a list of staff, and we've listed 15 people on staff. You know, all the people, brethren are good at it, right? Because we don't have just one guy who's doing it all. We had all sorts of people involved, and so half of our church was staff, maybe even more than that. So, but thankfully, you know, the Lord has been merciful to us. Yeah.
What's your greatest challenge that you're facing out there now?
Well, I would say one of the challenges is I firmly believe that whoever calls himself or herself a Christian and confines his or her Christian life to a Sunday morning service, I'm saying this is not enough. This is not, like, you need to be in fellowship. You need to be part of the Christian community. You know, be part of a home group, Bible study. Just be, you know, meet with Christian people during the week. Well, the problem is many of our young people are professionals. They work hard. They work long hours, and many of them live outside of the city, and they commute like 60 kilometers, 70 kilometers, right? Now, driving in Poland or in Wrocław is not like here, driving from here to Głów, which is nice and relaxing and just wow, you know. It's bumper to bumper, heavy traffic, you know, traffic jams. So quite often it's very difficult for those people to come to whatever is happening during the week. They come on Sunday, but then when they come, they stay longer because they want to be with other people. But I'm thinking, I was complaining about it actually, Dave, but someone said, you know, you should be thankful that at least those people, when they come on Sunday, they stay. They don't rush home because they want to be with each other. But it's a challenge, you know, because life has become extremely expensive in Poland. Many of those people, when they take a mortgage, you know, they're thinking, okay, if I get a certain amount of money, I can purchase a small apartment in Wrocław where the cost of real estate is about 15 to 20,000 zloty. You divide it by 3, so it's what? Roughly 5 to 8 or 9,000 Canadian dollars for a square meter. And a square meter is like 4 chairs together. That's the square meter, right? So it's very expensive. And people are thinking, well, if I get a mortgage, you know, I might as well just buy a nice house in a village on the outskirts rather than a tiny apartment in the city. So many of them decide to move outside of the city. So that's one of the challenges, right? And people are busy, tired, you know. Lack of commitment is quite a challenge. You know, when you ask people, could you commit yourself, you know, to doing this or that, you know, you have to constantly encourage people. It'd be nice if you could do this for 1 year. I see you're gifted in this area. We need you. It'd be nice to have you on a board, right? People's lives changed. That's very encouraging. When I see, just to give you one example, we have one brother who's how to say, choleric, how to say that in English? Someone who loses his control, who raises his voice easily. What's the English word for that? Who has a short fuse. Yeah, short temper, that's the word. So this one brother who's a bit older than I, we've known him for like 30 years now. And when I think of this brother as a young Christian 30 years ago and today, I'm thinking, wow, Lord, thank you for changing this man so much. Like he's a lot more caring and loving and patient with people. So it's a long process. We're talking about discipleship, right? We're talking about the Lord changing people's lives, not just saving them, but also once they're saved, just changing them, right? So that's really encouraging. And let me just say this. Many times we felt like we wanted to move back to Canada. But what kept us in Poland is there are two things. One, there are people that have been praying for us regularly, some of them every single day. Whenever we're back in Calgary, there's one brother who's with the Lord now, and he's assured us, him and his wife, you know what, we've been praying for you every single day. And I believe that these prayers made a difference in our lives and made us stay in Poland and stick to it. And another one is changed lives. You know, when I see that, I'm thinking it's worth the effort. Yes, and that puzzles me. But let me just be blunt also. When I trusted the Lord, I used to think that all the evangelical people are good guys and all of them just are, you know, my brother in Christ, right? And all the Catholics are bad guys. The older I am, the more I believe that there's actually a church within a church. And so I'm thinking of a local church, even our local gathering, you know, of 70, 80 people. There are some people, I just tell the Lord, you know where they stand. If I was to say a word, I would say they probably don't know you. Or if they do, they are baby Christians, right? But the same could be said about people within the Catholic Church. There is church within the church. When I talk to some of those Catholics, I can tell they're born again. You know, I don't have doubt about it. They love Jesus. They want to live for Jesus. But for some reason, which I don't understand, they decide to stay in the church, you know. Oh, it's actually an easy Polish word. Wrocław. With a slash, yes. We have 6 extra characters in Polish alphabet, and that's the things above the letter, below the letter, slash, across the letter. And there's a brother behind you who's raising his hand. He started opening his mouth a couple times, and you beat him. So. My wife would be a better person to answer this question precisely, but I can say that we try to have our ears perked, our eyes open, and I use this phrase, cast a wide net. Like you open to whatever, and you just, on a trial basis, you just try certain things, but also you sense the need, like the store, there was this need. We knew that there was an opportunity, there was lots of refugees. We knew that there were stores like that in other cities, not in our city. And there was the local government was actually very favorable towards the idea. They gave us a place and at a discount, so we didn't have to pay full price, like in terms of rent. It was reduced. So all of these factors taken together, we thought the ladies thought, okay, let's just go ahead and do it, right? Did I answer your question, actually? Depends who you're talking to. The mayor of the city has been quite favorable towards Protestants or evangelicals, but there are people in government who are just, you know, they don't want to talk to you. So. Well, okay. Yes, Poland has been part of NATO since 2005. Is it 2005 or maybe even earlier? No, part of EU since 2005. I can't remember now, but yes, we're a part of NATO. It's a very good question, and it's a very complex issue, because we could talk for hours now. But generally, there is a lot of propaganda in Russia. The TV, public TV is, just the average Russian person does not appreciate Polish people. They think it's the Poles, Ukrainians who are guilty. Ukrainians are not treated they're treated as second-class citizens. So very complex issue. And it's people often ask me, so what's going to happen? I don't know. Putin is very unpredictable. For me, the consoling thing is that God is in control. I keep repeating that to all of the people. God is in control. No matter what's going to happen, God is not going to be surprised, right? I remember talking to people many years ago, and some people were saying, Berlin Wall will never collapse, and it did collapse. I remember people saying that the black will never be a president of America, and they had a black American president, right? So people say all these things, it will never happen, or, definitely this will happen. I don't know. It's very unpredictable. We have to commit our lives to the Lord and trust that He knows what yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I could talk for hours, but I think it's probably less is more. So I'm going to ask, maybe if I could ask one of the brothers, maybe, or a couple of people to pray for us, we'd really, really, really appreciate that. And feel yourselves invited. We'd love to have you over in Poland. Please do come visit with us. Not all of you at the same time. Just let us know ahead of time. And we've had a team from Heidelberg in the past. Was it 6 years ago, 7 years ago? We'd love to have a team of people come and help us with the ministry, help us with the work. A lot of those people, just let me conclude with this. A lot of those people who you've seen on these pictures, they are in different places in their lives today because they were influenced by many, many people, different people. We had organized English camps for 7 years in a row, and many of those people were exposed and got to know those, mostly American friends who came and helped us. Heidelberg sent a team. So there's this African proverb, you may have heard it, it takes the whole village to raise a child. And thinking of that, I'm thinking it takes the whole Christian community to raise a solid, mature Christian person. So it's us in Poland, it's you guys, whether praying for us, supporting, sending team, it's other Christians, we work together for the same cause. So yes, so this is it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Ask for prayer. Let's do it this way. Let's have 3 of us pray. Randy's going to start. I will end, and one of you will in between. Is that okay, Randy? It's not okay. Would you mind?